I'm Robin Terry, Chairwoman and CEO of Motown Museum, and I am delighted to say that I have with me today my friend and somebody who I admire tremendously, Leon Richardson, who is the founder, the chair, and the CEO, president and CEO
Yes.
of the Chemico Group.
Yes.
And so, Leon, welcome and thank you for participating in this interview.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much for having us. Really delighted to spend some time with you and talk to you a little bit about our business and entrepreneurialism and how important it is for our community. So again, thank you for having me.
So we started a conversation some time ago, and interestingly enough, it was right here where we're sitting. And we were talking about your getting involved in the Motown Museum expansion, and I remember you saying to me, Robin, I don't care anything about the music part.
Sure.
I didn't get to do all that, but I care about creating more entrepreneurs, particularly entrepreneurs of color.
That's
do you
right.
remember that?
I do. I think my involvement here is really the business side of this, right? And the entrepreneurial side. The music is really just a product, but the passion that went into putting this product together and actually creating something that's really sustainable is really what I'm all about and what Motown's all about. So I really am excited to be here and talk about it. I really am excited with your project.
Well, thank you for that. So let's take a little stroll back for a second,
Sure.
because I would love for our partners, students, participants who hear this interview to really walk away from it, knowing who Leon Richardson is and sort of how you arrived in this place.
Okay.
You are one of the most decorated entrepreneurs from your accolades and awards that you've received on the national level,
Sure.
on the state level, as a minority supplier in the auto space, to the accolades that the world has given you from the BETs and the NAACPs of the world. So, and you come from Detroit. So I want you to just talk a little bit about your journey from, young man growing up in Detroit to the Leon Richardson sitting in front of us today.
Sure.
As the chair, CEO, and president and founder of the Chemico Group.
Well, thank you. And the journey probably started all the way back. I was born in Highland Park, Hamtramck, Michigan. And my parents, after just 1 year, decided to move to West Haven, Connecticut. And my dad was an entrepreneur, initially starting out with a small construction company. He had a pickup truck and a hammer and a shovel, and he did small jobs. And soon he was convinced that he wanted to be in the retail business. So he moved into a small convenience store business in West Haven, Connecticut. And in that business, they were really catering to a blue-collar workforce. So in the 70s, the Vietnam War was taking place. And at that time, a lot of the munition manufacturers, Remington, Winchester, that made the bullets and rifles and ammunition for the military, were all housed in the Connecticut area. And the folks that worked in that industry were all blue-collar individuals. And my father really catered to those individuals. So as a young child, being named Leon after my dad, I could actually sign for supplies. So I wasn't fortunate enough to go out and play with other kids on the weekends. And after school, I would have to come right to the store and work with my dad and ran the supply side of the business because my name was Leon, as his name was Leon. And I was very comfortable signing for bread and signing for supplies. So I quickly got involved in the family business. And then in the mid-70s, the Vietnam War came to an end. And as that war ended and those munition suppliers dried up, and that business slowed down, my dad tried to figure out where he'd find another concentration of blue-collar workforce. And he decided to move the family to Detroit, Michigan, back to Detroit, Michigan, and set up a small party store, convenience store, Leon and Lil's Party Store. And they catered to a blue-collar workforce. And again, I was strongly encouraged to work in the family business. And I continued to do that until I left to go to Detroit College of Business and then the military. So while I was in the Marine Corps, going into the military, you have to take an aptitude test, a test to determine what skills you have. And surprisingly enough, my skills were related to a retail activity. So I was put into the Marine Corps Exchange. So the Marine Corps Exchange is really designed to give the warfighter the accoutrements of home, no matter where they are in the world. So if you're in a combat situation in Afghanistan, once you come back to the rear and you want to buy a candy bar or a Coca-Cola, the military is going to provide a store there to provide that for you. And I ran that activity. So as a result of that, I was buying materials for every military person in Japan from all over the world. So if the military base commander wanted a steak from a Nebraska steakhouse, it was my job to get it to Japan. And understanding the logistics involved in that was very complicated, but that's what led to some of the stuff that we're doing today. Once I was able to get out of the military, fortunately after 8 years, I was recruited to work for a chemical company that's here in Michigan. And that company was really the epicenter of the paint maintenance technologies that we see today. So they were making cleaners and solvents that were primarily used for cleaning paint shops. And I started out in that company in a laboratory, learning how to formulate those chemistries. And then soon moved into manufacturing, learning how to make those chemistries in large batches. And then eventually moved into sales. And that's where I really took to this business. I really was committed to helping the industry reduce the environmental footprint that they were operating under, because this company that I was working for was really focused on reducing the hazards of chemicals in the manufacturing process. So that's really where it started for me, thinking about environmental. How can we help our customer reduce their environmental footprint, reduce the toxicity that employees are exposed to, and reduce the overall cost? And that was really my mission when I worked for this company in the laboratory. And I soon got into sales and sold a really big job for the company. As a matter of fact, it was so large that other sales guys had to get involved in it. And my commission for that job was supposed to be 10%. But having been the only minority working for this company in sales, and the other sales guys all agreed that we should split my commission with them because they were helping on the job. So instead of this company paying us the $50,000 commission I was supposed to receive, they just paid me $25,000. And I took that $25,000 with the knowledge I had working in the laboratory, with the knowledge I gained working in manufacturing, and the knowledge I gained working with the customer. I started this company, the Chemico Group. And we grew this company to about $400,000 a year in sales when this company came back to me and asked us to be a manufacturer's rep for them. And we decided, not holding a grudge, and I had worked in the laboratory, so I knew their formulas. And I had worked in the field, so I knew how to make their products, and I knew how to introduce them to the customer. So we thought we could actually act as a sales representative for them. We got to the point where they owed us about $800,000, and they tried to file Chapter 11 reorganization on us and not pay us again. Well, we had learned a little bit about business along the way, so we went out and bought all of the unsecured creditors' positions. So they had the unsecured creditors and the secured creditors. So the unsecured creditors, we bought their position for 10 cents on the dollar. And the secured creditors, we bought their position for 80 cents on the dollar with the promise of paying them 100% over time. So in essence, we bought that company out of bankruptcy just before they actually filed. And that gave us 75 years of approved products. And once you have approved products, that was really the opportunity. 75 years of approved products in the automotive industry with the passion and desire to help our customer reduce their footprint. So we did that. We started a company in 1989. We brought that company in 1994. And last year, when we brought that company, I think they were hovering around $10 million in sales. And we took that and the business we have, and I think last year we came in just under 180 million in sales. We operate in 32 states and 3 countries. I have a little over 500 employees. A vast majority of our work is happening in Mexico, so we have a large presence in Mexico. We operate on both borders and coast to coast, and we've been doing this now for 32 years.
So Leon, I have to say this to you, and I'm going to deviate from my questions because I want to just drill down on something here. But First, congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
And thank you for being such a role model for so many of us that are aspiring to be in the entrepreneurial space. It's just, I listened to your story. It reminds me of my uncle's story, of Berry Gordy's story.
Sure.
And when he got a check for $3.19 for songs he wrote. And Smokey Robinson said to him, if that's all you're going to get, you might as well go into business for yourself.
Sure.
But that doesn't, I want to understand, when you tell that story, it sounds like you just knew what to do at every turn. And there was this kind of beast in you that was like, I can do it for myself. I do it for myself. How did you manage? Your parents instilled this entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes.
But how did you make these really challenging decisions as you were navigating, not only leaving one company, but then starting your own, and then do I go into business with them? How did you do that? What were you thinking?
My focus was really the customer, because the customer really drives everything that we do. And I understood that this industry that we were in at one point was the largest environmental hazardous industry in the country, the automotive industry. And they had a desire to change that, and I really wanted to help them do that. So I understood the small role that we can play in reducing the chemical footprint of the customers that we were dealing with, and I was just passionate about that. Yeah. And that's what really led to the success we had. I think success, I don't really look at us as being successful. Successful is not final, and failure is not fatal. We just work at it every single day. So we're not afraid of failure, and we're not afraid of success. We just work at it every day.
Yep. I love that. Understood. Understood. So, okay, now I want to transition a little bit. So you and I have talked about just the importance of, and not just the importance of Black entrepreneurial participation
Sure.
in whatever the marketplace
Sure.
is.
Sure.
Whether it is as an auto supplier or in the larger marketplace. Why is that so important to you, and what does the current landscape look like?
Well, in my opinion, we have to create our own opportunities. There are not a lot of people that work in the space that I work in that look like me. So there weren't a lot of opportunities for me to go and work for companies that do the same thing and have the same passion that I bring to Chemico. So I had to create it myself. And I see that in a lot of industries. We're just not going to get all of the opportunities that everyone gets or that others get. And that's not a knock, right? So I think we can create our own opportunities, and that's what we've done at Chemico. So if I couldn't get a job at Dow, if I couldn't get a job at some of the other large chemical companies, I just want to create my own, because my passion to help our customer reduce their environmental footprint and reduce the toxicity that employees are exposed to and controlling their overall cost was a passion. And that's what led to where we are today.
What does that passion look like? That passion that sustains you every day, what does that look like?
Nonstop. Just nonstop desire to satisfy our customer, nonstop desire for excellence, nonstop relentless pursuit of excellence.
And how does that get you? I mean, it's one thing to say it, right? And to say, you know what, I wake up, I'm passionate about what I do. I feel that way about the museums. I really do understand what you're saying. But for the person who's listening, who says, I do wake up passionate. I know I believe in what I want to do, but I'm still not getting a seat at the table. How do they do that? How did you manage to do that? And not just a seat, but a front row seat.
Sure. So nothing comes overnight. And Chemico is not an overnight success. You have to crawl and then learn to walk, and then you learn to run. So the first thing we sold the automotive industry is what I thought they needed, and it was a comprehensive floor cleaner. They needed a floor cleaner to clean up paint that the other companies couldn't produce. I knew they needed it. I was always in the plant with the other company, so I realized where there was an opportunity. It was a small opportunity. Nobody wants to sell floor soap when you can sell solvent for 10 times that amount, but you have to take what you can. So we got in by selling something very small, very minute. No one really wanted it, and we grew that into where we are today.
That's interesting. So you got to seek the opportunity.
Yes.
Look for, and nothing is too big or too small.
No. So when we started our company again, we started at zero. So the day I opened the doors, we had no business. And I said, I want to sell to General Motors. Who does that? But I thought I knew what they needed. I thought I knew what they needed. I knew where the customer was. I knew how the system worked. And even though we hadn't done it before for ourselves, I knew how to do it. And I was passionate about it. And they can sense that passion when I knocked on the door and said, I want to sell you this great floor soap that's going to reduce your environmental footprint. And that's how it started. How big a role did relationships play in you getting in the door at General Motors? I mean, they have given you so many awards for excellence in service. How much of that was relationship, and how much of getting a seat at that table were relationships you had? In business, relationships mean everything. It's all about relationships. Robots will never buy. Machines will never buy. People buy from people. And people buy from people that they know, they like, and they trust, right? So you have to develop a relationship. When I worked for the other chemical company, one of the things that the customer really realized about us, I started in the industry when they would actually shut down for 2 weeks for Christmas, and then shut down 2 weeks for summer break, and no production would take place whatsoever. Well, for me, that was a time to get into plants and work with the supervisors and the maintenance folks. The other guys that worked for the company, they wanted to take 2 weeks off, and I never did. I would always go in and work with the customer. So I built a relationship with folks, demonstrating that I wanted to help them, not just sell them something, but really help them. I'm here on your downtime. I'm here when no one else is here because I really want to help you. And that's where the relationships really began.
So Liam, we've talked about the importance of not only passion and relationships for any entrepreneur, whatever the product, the service is, that's important. Now let's talk about, the big elephant in the room, and it's how do you finance these ventures, right? Folks are passionate about things. They have relationships, but they can't get the kind of financing that they need to take their business concepts even to the next level. So how did you maneuver that? You said you started at zero.
Right. So we started at zero in business, but remember, I had that $25,000 commission check. And that was the beginning of it. And then I went to the bank of the 3Fs, friends, families, and fools, that would actually invest in this crazy idea.
Yep.
But I honestly believe if you have a great idea, financing is available. Someone will help you finance this opportunity. If it's a real opportunity and there's a real desire by a customer, that's not going to be the deterrent. There's a lot of cash available for that.
And so what would you, I'm going back to something else you said to me once, and you said the fastest dying profession is the Black entrepreneur.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
So when I started this company 32 years ago, I was really interested in being involved with a group of gentlemen called the National Association of Black Automotive Suppliers. And it was headed by Dave Bing and Bill Picard and others that were patriots in the automotive industry. I mean, they've just been around this business forever, and they know a lot about it. And I wanted to sit near those gentlemen. And at the time, there were 68 African-American companies involved. And over time, I ended up becoming the president of that organization. And when I finally shut the organization down, we were down to 12. Wow. So in just a 30-year period, we went from 68 African-American suppliers supplying everything from all goods and services from seating to fasteners to chemicals down to less than 15.
And what do you attribute that to?
My first concern is there's not a lot of African Americans coming into the market. That's number one. And a lot of times we've gotten to businesses that just aren't sustainable, and then we didn't make the proper shift to another industry or another business, and just not getting support from the customers. So when the customers don't really support minority entrepreneurs, this kind of stuff happens. So I mean, companies like Chemico, we bring a lot of value, and our customers love the things we do, but we could do more.
So you know that part of the programming platform for the museum is really twofold. One, that we want to create more artists in the world, so and create a pathway for those who are interested in becoming performing artists, musicians, music makers.
Sure.
But equally as important to us is creating a track to cultivate the next generation of entrepreneurs. And so, you know, when I think about your statement, and you and I have talked about this, your statement that is the fastest dying profession, I remember saying to you, but what about all of these, you know, online startups? And there's so many, it seems like now more than ever, because we have access to an internet and we have access to an online marketplace, that you're seeing these Black-owned, you know, startup businesses. I want you to repeat what you said to me about that with regard to sustainability.
Yeah, I think a lot of businesses that start up like that, as you see on the internet, aren't really sustainable. And the barrier of entry is so low. A computer and an idea, and you can create an app. Well, the guy sitting right, or the woman sitting right next to you has that same idea. So there's only going to be so many Facebooks out there. There's only going to be so many Microsofts. And the barrier of entry to make an app is so low. You just talked about the entertainers that you're trying to create. Well, those entertainers is a business. They have to perform in a music hall somewhere, right? So somebody's got to build that. And then somebody has to turn the lights on. And somebody has to clean the parking lot. And somebody has to repair it. So there's a business behind everything you're doing. You don't necessarily have to think you need to create the next Microsoft, because that's not necessarily the answer. There's all types of business opportunities if you just pay close attention. As I just mentioned with your entertainers, they have to perform somewhere, and somebody has to put the floor in, and someone has to paint the wall, and someone has to put in a drywall, and someone has to put a roof on the building. Why can't that be us?
So is it that we need to think about, if you are the entrepreneur, it's not just thinking about, you know, one particular path to success, if that's how you define it, but it's what are all of the paths within that ecosystem that you might take advantage of?
Well, if you really give it some thought, everything you see, everything you touch, everything you encounter has been bought or sold. So everything from this carpet to these chairs is some type of commerce, right? So there's a supply chain and there's an ecosystem in everything that we do. We just need to uncouple that and see where we participate. And
then how do you know the right place for you to participate?
For me, it's finding what you're knowledgeable of, finding what you're passionate about, and finding what you really know how it operates. So knowledge, passion, and understanding how it operates. So if you understand that, that's where you should really focus your time. So if you like hair, for instance, and you like coloring hair, and you know how the chemicals that go into it, and you know there's a market for it, maybe you should get into the hair business. Because you know something about it, you're passionate about it, and there's a market for it. And that exists in everything you see.
And that doesn't matter if that has nothing to do with being an auto supplier or anything else. That is a general principle. Someone
sold a white piece of paper today with nothing on it.
Wow.
So there's business in every aspect of your life. You need to find it, but it's there.
You also made a statement about sustainable businesses, and sustainable businesses being those that now I'm paraphrasing, but move the needle. So where you have a seat at the table. Can you just define for us the difference between a sustainable business, just to make sure folks didn't miss that, and those where the barrier to entry is so low that you can't achieve sustainability?
So by way of example, someone created the best car charging cigarette lighter you've ever seen in the world. Someone created that. And they're out of business today. Why? Because no one uses a car charger cigarette lighter anymore. They don't even put them in cars any longer. So whoever created that was not a sustainable business. Conversely, someone who creates a wheel or a tire that goes on a car, that's going to happen every single time they build a car. So that's a sustainable business. So when I think about sustainability, I think about a business that's going to go on no matter what. The customer's going to need this. The individual's going to need this versus it may change tomorrow. So I try to stay away from things that are here today and gone tomorrow. I try to focus on staples, focus on things that we're going to need, or focus on things that aren't going to disappear tomorrow.
What about adapting to change? So as environment changes, as needs change, then your business has to be flexible enough to adapt with the times. What about that?
By way of example, when I first started in this industry, we were using a lot of hazardous chemicals, methylene chloride, known carcinogens, furfural alcohol, known materials, because the paint that they were dealing with was so difficult to deal with. And all those companies that were making those materials are out of business today, primarily because the painting process has changed from going from a solvent-borne product to a water-borne product. So we had to evolve from dealing with just solvents to dealing with other materials because the product changed. So it's always an evolution in business. Things are going to constantly change. You have to evolve with it. Nothing stays the same in business.
So Leon, this is probably my favorite question because succession, particularly in Black-owned business, we know is it's rare that you see succession. And I come from a family where, from my great-grandparents, they instilled a lot of work ethic and just an entrepreneurial spirit in their 8 children. My grandmother was one of them. My grandmother had the great fortune she had the great fortune. I had the great fortune to have my 2 grandmothers co-parent me after I lost my mother when I was 15. And so a lot of my grandmother's philosophies and values around entrepreneurship were poured into me. And so now her business I am running. I know that doesn't come easy. And that oftentimes, it's more desirable to allow our children to go off and find their dreams and do what they do. Your father poured into you, and you've talked about that. Now, how is that showing up for you with your own children?
It's really funny you mentioned that because as I think about this, my grandfather actually poured it into my father. My grandfather was from one of the poorest counties in the country, in Tunica, Mississippi. And that's the Mississippi Delta, one of the poorest counties in the country. And he figured out how to be an entrepreneur. He was getting into the cotton business, and they were getting into managing fields for other folks and taking the excess cotton and selling it to other folks. So he became an entrepreneur really, really early in life with no education. And my father had 9 brothers and sisters, but he was the only one that got the entrepreneurial bug, the baby in the family. I'm not sure, maybe he was the last one to work in the family, but he got the entrepreneurial bug, and it was instilled in me. I have 3 other siblings who don't have the entrepreneurial bug for some reason. Now, when you look at my children, my oldest daughter has a master's degree in human resources, and she works in the company, and she's on the executive management team. My next daughter has 2 or 3 different businesses, including real estate and a pet managing business. And my next daughter is actually a school teacher. And my youngest daughter wants to get in the theater industry. So they all have some desire to do something on their own with something around business. And I think it's because what they've seen go on in our family. However, being directly involved in Chemico, only the oldest wants to do that. The other ones, I really believe they saw me get up at 6 o'clock and leave the house every morning and not come home until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And maybe the automotive industry isn't really cut out for them, so they've gone into other businesses. But I think succession planning is extremely important. I think, we want to create a 100-year-old company. Well, one person can't do that. The only way to do that is to have succession planning in place. So we talk about it often at the family meetings. We talk about it at the dinner table. We talk about it at the breakfast table. My children understand that this business isn't just for me, it's for the entire family, and it should go on in perpetuity if they manage it properly.
Do you see succession as a sacrifice that generations should be willing to make in order to achieve that 100-year-old business?
Yes.
Or okay.
I believe it's an obligation because I wasn't given this opportunity just for me. That would be selfish to think that all this came just for me to benefit from this. This is for the entire community and my family, right? So this isn't a one and done deal, right? This needs to go on in perpetuity because it would be selfish to think that this is all for me.
If there were more families like that. I understand that.
Sure. I think succession is really important. That's the only way we're going to keep this type of thing going on. And the other part of succession to me is we spend a lot of time, effort, and energy mentoring and developing other minority companies. So not only do we spend 20% of our purchasing with other minority companies, we help develop and nurture those companies. So it's really important that we pull up other minority companies as well. So we spend time training them, we spend time nurturing them, we spend time developing them. And then we also spend time with HBCUs, historical black colleges and universities. And we bring interns in every year because when I look around, I don't see a lot of black chemists or the black chemical engineers because when they graduate from the University of Michigan, I'm competing with General Motors or I'm competing with Dow Chemical. So I don't get a shot at the best engineers. So I have to go out and create my own. And I'm finding that in HBCUs, they may not get the opportunities that some other folks get. So I'm giving them those opportunities by bringing those 10 in every year. And we hope they stay with the company. Most actually do. So we create our own network and pipeline of employees, and we're showing them exactly how this type of thing works. And if they want to leave the company and start their own business, we'll help encourage that as well. And sometimes they'll leave and start their business and come back and supply us. So yeah, we think we're creating an ecosystem for entrepreneurs.
Well, and it is an ecosystem for empowerment,
Sure.
right? Real empowerment.
Right.
I remember my grandmother, even when we were little, she would always say to us, do you want to be the person signing the check or the person receiving the check?
Sure.
And initially we would say, we want to receive the check. And she said, but if this person's signing a check to you and you get this much, how much do you think they have? Right?
Sure.
And so it's just always been instilled in us to own our own business and therefore control our own destiny.
Sure.
To whatever degree.
So, but it's important on both sides. I mean, everyone wants to get a check, right? And everyone needs to get a check. So I think that's important as well. But there need to be entrepreneurs as well that are cutting those paychecks because, quite frankly, I'm going to give more folks that look like me opportunities than folks that don't look like me, right? So there needs to be more of Chemicos to create more opportunities for folks in our community.
Yes.
And when we open our businesses, we're going to open our businesses in communities that we live in and communities that we work in. So that means we're going to hire people that look like us and come from the same background and have the same experiences that we have.
And ultimately, that is the empowerment circle, the equity circle.
Yes.
I got it. All right, so now I want to go to the final phase of this, which is really more about just understanding how the entrepreneur needs to think. You've already dropped incredible golden nuggets in this conversation about passion, about relationships, about network, about tapping into what you do well and what you know about. So you've already given us that. But I'm curious, when what is it that you wake up in the morning every day saying, that's what I'm going to do, and that's why I'm getting up to go do it?
Well, we really understand the markets that we're in, We really understand our customers, and we really understand where they're going with technology, and we try to meet our customers where they are. So if my customer is going from an internal combustion engine to electrification, we're trying to figure out what kind of chemistries are going to be used in the electrification market because the market's changing. So we started out just making waterborne chemistry and then moved to solvent-borne chemistry and then moved to applying the chemistry for our customer and then evolved into managing the chemicals. So we've changed our company 3 or 4 times, and that's why we call it the Chemico Group, because it's a group of different companies that evolve every time the customer evolves. So what I think about every day is, what is my customer doing next that I need to be prepared for? What's happening in the industry next that I need to be prepared for? I go to bed thinking about that, and I wake up thinking about that every day.
So sometimes when there's someone who's so successful, it's hard for it. It looks like everything in life just sort of worked out the way it's supposed to.
Sure.
Have there ever been any moments where you just said, maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this, or this just, maybe I'm done with this?
Yeah.
Have you ever had that kind of day?
Daily. Every day.
I love it. Explain that.
Business is tough. Dealing with employees are tough. Dealing with customers is tough. Dealing with suppliers is tough. Just business period is tough. So every day you wake up questioning yourself, is this the right thing to do? Am I doing the right thing? And as soon as you address that, you get up and you start moving and realize, yes, this is the right thing. But everyone questions what they do in business. Everyone questions, am I going down the right path? And we do as well. But for us, we wake up every morning saying, yes, I'm going to question this, but I think this is what we should do. And we get up and we do the right thing.
Yeah, the passion affirmation outweighs that doubt.
Yes.
I understand that.
But the doubt is, we always question ourselves. Are we doing the right things? Are we turning in the right direction? It's a very tricky market that we're in. Today, the supply chain issues are driving folks crazy. The employment issues are uncertain. Production issues are uncertain. So the uncertainty of business is what frustrates us every day, I think.
What advice, and I know you get this question a lot, but for those who are listening and watching this, and maybe they're at that low barrier to entry space, what advice would you give them about taking their business to the next level and the importance of pushing to the next level?
It really is important to continue to grow your business, but understanding your business is extremely important, and understanding how the business works is extremely important, and understanding how your customers behave and what they're thinking is extremely important. So business is more than just having a widget or a service and providing that widget or service. It's really taking a deep dive in every aspect of the business, the customer, your employee, yourself, all your professionals, everyone involved with you. You really need to spend the time making sure everyone's on the same page.
Is everybody cut out to be an entrepreneur?
No. It's not for everyone. This is it's difficult. Could be dangerous financially. It takes a certain type of passion to do this. It takes a certain type of person to do this, and it's not for everyone. We have over 500 employees, and there's probably only 2 that really want to be an entrepreneur. And I'm one.
Describe that person that's cut out for this work.
Driven, passionate, focused, relentless. Those accolades.
I recognize that person. I do.
You know that person. You see him every day, right?
I do.
Every time you look in the mirror. That's right.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you would want to just say to, the person who's watching or listening, that's looking at you and all of your success and saying, I want that someday?
Again, you mentioned success a few times. It's ongoing. It's every day. But if I could leave them with anything, it would be focus. Really focus on what you're doing and don't take your eye off the prize. There'll be a lot of distractions, and there'll be a lot of people that will try to deter you, but stay focused and stay passionate. And that's one of the things that really help us, or 2 of the things that help us.
Fantastic. Well, Leon, thank you for being a part of this with us. This was just invaluable. And I know will mean a lot to the folks who get the fortune to get to watch this.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right.